Hi everybody, my name's Pete Cook, and what I'd like to do is to tell you about a revolution which is coming in September. Now this revolution is going to start at a college, an engineering college in Hull, who will be the first institution on the earth to teach that turbulence and laminar flow have a common explanation. Now you're going to be thinking, well, why is that a revolution? Here's why. 30 years ago I was working on jet engines. And the biggest problem inside jet engines is turbulence. And I bought this book here, Chaos and Nonlinear Dynamics by Robert C. Hilborn. And in the book, I was completely shocked to find that turbulence is not explained by any physics. And yet we're constantly bombarded by science programs which infer that molecules, solar systems, chemistry, genetics, biology is all accounted for in science, and it's not. So first we have to start telling the truth. Now, the reason that turbulence is not explained by any physics is that this book describes the unpredictable behavior of matter, and physics is not mentioned in the book. So something's wrong. If I look in a biology book, that describes the behavior of matter, the same matter that's in physics. But there's no physics in the book, or chemistry, or genetics, or virology, or an economics book, or evolution. So something is very, very wrong. My little team, 30 years ago, set out to answer that problem because it was guaranteed to be a human error caused by the human condition. And we found out it was. Most engineering problems are the same. So we're very, very experienced at teasing out these problems, buying all the books, going through all the science, and finding a common sense answer. And that's what we've got. The common sense answer for turbulence and physics is the fact that the laws of mathematics provide causality for every action in the universe. Currently, people hoped that physics was going to provide an explanation for every action in the universe, but that hasn't happened. It hasn't happened in the simplest molecule or the solar system. The solar system is a very accurate clock, and physics, gravity, has no explanation how that clock self-assembled. But a combination of physics and nonlinear dynamics gives a perfectly logical explanation of how the clock, the solar system, formed. And the same thing with biology. So there's lots of books like this one, Icons of Evolution, Science or Myth, questioning the current picture of biology, which sees everything happening by chance. Well, that's impossible, because a single molecule would never evolve in the lifetime of the universe by chance. So books like this, The Incredible Unlikeliness of Being, are beginning to ask us to stop and think. When we go to university, nobody notices that we get separated out into different departments, even though we're all studying the same matter. And there's no university with a department in the middle looking for the link. So if you're not looking for the answer to the problem, you're never going to find it. That's why the answer came out of industry. Now, there are lots of people beginning to question the fact that physics doesn't explain most of nature. Books like this, A World Beyond Physics, by Stuart Kauffman, and he states quite clearly, look, biology is by definition adaptable. Classical physics is by definition not adaptable. So you're never going to get biology explained by the physics, so stop trying. Biology and physics are both explained by matter and space behaving relative to the laws of mathematics. Another book like this one, The Trouble with Physics by Lee Smolin. Basically, he says the game's up. We've got all the pieces of the puzzle, we know all the science is right in each university department. So it's perfectly logical to think if each department is all ordered and correct, there must be a common link that shows how all the departments fit together, and that will be the same. That will reflect how all systems of matter in nature fit together. And it does, it's exactly the same. What we found is that all systems of matter in nature are built upon the same three principles. And we're going to teach those principles to students in September. And what happens when you start to teach students like that? The students learn 10 times faster. And that was proved in Taiwan, where young students, as young as 10, were learning quantum mechanics and taking this home to their parents and explaining how it works to them. It was so successful it made national TV news, and the school advertised that 10-year-olds could come and learn quantum mechanics. And I've got those adverts to show people. Of course they don't believe it until you prove it. Well, I used to race motorcycles, so I'm quite used to being held to account. Prove it. If you come last, get off. That's the way that we work. We're engineers. We've got 300 lives in our hands when we inspect an aircraft engine. So we're very used to making these very difficult decisions, which have to be done methodically, step by step, and based on evidence. But what's happening in the world now is that nobody knows who to believe. The science doesn't make any sense whatsoever because the universities don't reflect reality. So nobody knows who to trust. Reason and logic have been lost. And I've been to a lot of presentations at the local university on post-truth, and they were just hopeless, absolutely hopeless. People couldn't ask the right questions. So since the time of Newton, basically we've had the wrong philosophy, and that is the only thing that's stopping all of science being put back together. As soon as you get the correct philosophy, and the reason I went to work in Taiwan is because they already had the correct philosophy. They never believed that physics was the bottom line. They always believed it was mathematics. In the 1960s, a man called Murray Gell Mann took that mathematics from Taoism and used it to rearrange all the particles in particle physics, and it's called the Eightfold Way. Well, doesn't that shock you a little bit? Well, now it's going to be wake-up time, and all I can do is to say to people, it's coming, and it's going to be documented because I've got 3 very good journalists who are studying all these books, and I talk them through it, especially this book. This book has all the evidence, the real clues that you need to make up your mind. Your brain works in 2 different ways. When you're catching a cricket ball, you do physics, and it knows exactly where that ball is going to go. But when you're dealing with something like a human being, that's a combination of physics and non-linear dynamics, your brain has to guess at what is most likely to happen. So it uses statistical inference to guess. That's why if something very unlikely happens, like you winning the lottery, your brain gets a shock. And the first thing you say is, I don't believe it. That shock is coming in September to everybody on the earth to say, look, there is a logical explanation for nature. It's being taught to students here, and we already know the results when you start teaching it to students. They just accelerate away from everybody else and leave them behind. It's like having the best motorbike in the race. And anybody who decides, well, I'm not even going to compete, it's going to have a hard time, because that's what happened in Taiwan. And nobody likes being left behind when it comes to education. But that's what happened. Well, it's about time that this happened, and it's not a surprise. It comes from an engineer who races motorbikes and is used to being held to account at that level. When I was racing motorbikes, I would put my life on the line, but I didn't think I was taking too big a risk. I made sure I was all prepared, and that's what people need to get ready for in September, is when it goes into the media, people are going to ask questions. So there's a chance to get prepared. It doesn't take long. I can talk people through the books. We've written out an explanation where to find all the information in this book, because it takes a lot of reading. So we can talk people through it step by step. Well, that's all I can do, is offer some advice. But if you want to take it, get in touch and we'll go from there. Bye-bye now.